Welcome back to the Press Club, and thank you very much for joining us. For those of you who have joined us from near and far, those of you who have us in whatever room in your house and have welcomed us into your presence, we really do appreciate you tuning into the program every week to listen to us discuss the behind the scenes, as it were, as far as news is concerned. And let's jump to your story, your top story, the acquisition of GL Food Market by Consolidated Foods Limited. And that is a major development, considering that CFL is the dominant player in the supermarket industry.
Yes, it is. It has been for quite some time, and as has become, I could say, habitual with CFL, you never know what they'll do next. And
is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Yes, well, I would say a good thing in business.
In business, yes.
The announcement took St. Lucia by storm. I only heard it after the fact. It was a belated announcement put out by CFL saying that they are now responsible for GL Foods as of the 1st of June, and that came out like the 3rd of June. I also understand that there was some story at some point on the last day of May which said, well, today is the last day of GL Foods. There have been mixed reactions. There's the understandable reaction of the Consumer Association and the Minister of Commerce, both of whom indicated that they are interested in ensuring that consumers are protected, and that the minister, in fact, said while she doesn't see anything wrong with the purchase, she would hope that the ability of CFL to purchase more goods cheaply would result in consumers being able to get even cheaper goods. The Consumer Association, on the other hand, used the opportunity to once again call on the government of St. Lucia to consider the implementation of a Consumer Protection Act. And that is something that Mr. St. Hill, the president of the association, has been mentioning for quite some time. But Clinton, there were those, and there still are those, who have raised the whole question of monopoly, and CFL having a monopoly over food items.
Yeah.
And I would say that those who have been saying so in the past week since the GL purchase by CFL, they've lost the boat. The boat has left them behind, because I mean, CFL has been in the dominant position for years. Now CFL has 10 supermarkets, and this is going to be the 11th. Then all of a sudden people are recognizing that they have a monopoly over the food process. But I'll say this to you. When the issue was put to the public on DBS's Street Vibes, the question was more or less, do you agree? What do you think about CFL taking over GL? And I saw that program. Every single response said yes. Every single public responder said yes, including those who said, well, if Shasney is the only one who's willing to put his money out, other solutions have money and they keep banking it. If he's the only one willing to make that deal, it's okay. And another saying, well, it's okay because CFL gives us points, you know, and we save. Now, say what you want, this seems to have been one, I wouldn't say a merger, but a hostile takeover. By invitation.
You say
a hostile takeover by invitation, because they were competitors.
Right.
They were competitors. Next door, neighboring competitors.
Yeah. I'll tell you one thing about that. Well, there are a few things in it for me. The first thing is, you know, when I had Michael Shasney on my show some weeks ago, he intimated that this was going to happen. Not that CFL was going to buy over GL, but that GL was in trouble, and that, you know, there was a major meeting that he had attended either the week before, or he was going to attend a meeting the day after the show, to see how CFL, GL food market could stay open so that the jobs would not be lost. Okay, so
that was a scoop that you missed.
It was a
Yeah, because I mean, Michael Chastney talking about saving GL.
Right. Yeah. I mean, he spoke to me in confidence. You know.
I thought it was on the program.
No, not on the program,
okay,
but then in confidence, he said, you know, I mean, I don't want to discuss this, but you know, this is happening. You know, GL is thinking of closing down, and they were supposed to close down the week before, but you know, we begged them to stay on because of the jobs that would be lost. That's one thing. So GL was in trouble. You cannot compete with one supermarket when you have a CFL with 11 supermarkets.
Well, when GL came in, CFL had 9.
And they opened 2 more.
And they opened
subsequently.
Well, no, I'm saying, if you're saying one supermarket cannot compete with 11, I'm saying that when Goddard's took the decision to open GL, CFL already had 9 supermarkets.
No, the reason I say that because of the distribution of goods. I mean, GL is in one place. You would not leave Soufriere or Vieux-Fort or Canneries or Choiseul to come up to GL to shop.
Yeah, but interestingly, CFL has said that they're not going to change the concept. They're going to leave GL as it is and make it profitable as it is, which is what GL couldn't do.
How long? But you see, the point I'm making is they're able to do that because they're the dominant player in the market. That means that they can get the products at a reduced price. GL, because of their limited distribution, cannot do what CFL can do. Because if GL...
But CFL can make GL do what it wants to do better by virtue of it's getting
because
the
right now
goods
it's
cheaper.
It's part of the
So you want to
consolidation.
buy more expensive stuff, upmarket stuff, better goods, go to GL.
Just like in New York, you have, what do they call it? Whole Foods, you know, where the upscale place where you get your fresh fish. I visited there and I'm looking at salmon. For $28 a pound, and I'm like, I should not be in here.
Well, we buy tamarind for $17 a box.
My goodness, you know. So I'm just walking through and I'm just spectating. You know, imagine I'm a spectator in a grocery store.
Yes.
So I'm like, this is not a grocery store for me. So yeah, there's some people who would frequent that because of the ambience, because of the quality or the perceived quality, better quality.
And I'll go visit.
I will go with you. I will go with you. We'll not go hand in hand, but we'll go together. We'll just say, oh, well, this thing is rather pricey for what it is. Now, that's one thing. The other thing, too, is consumers' responsibility. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, you know, it's a bad thing and this and that, and prices would go up. Consumers have all the power. Okay, I don't care what you tell me. If something is too pricey, or if you think this pen is not worth what it is priced at, then you don't buy it.
Go buy
That's what it is, exactly.
Buy a cheaper one.
Don't buy it. And if you don't buy it, and if I don't buy it and you don't buy it, and Jim, Kelly,
they won't order that many anymore.
And they would have to reduce the price. If it is overpriced, they would have to reduce the price to get rid of the stock. You know, so I hate to hear people say, okay, well, you know, it's going to result in overpricing or, you know, pricing.
There are things people don't like: paying tax and paying higher prices.
Don't say that cuss. Don't say that cuss word in here. That T word. Don't say the T word.
So it's one of those things with societies.
Right.
We don't like. It's like Wasco. Wasco's water went up. You would know about that. I think, you know, people...
Something I support wholeheartedly.
People naturally... I'll take a fifth on that one. People naturally oppose
of course.
the increases of anything.
Of course.
Everybody doesn't want to pay the increase. But you know what? Wasco is probably the only country in the world. St. Lucia is probably the only country in the world where the water company can raise water fees by over 60%, and there isn't a tear, there isn't a protest, there isn't a demonstration. You know why? Because we haven't been paying for 13 years. We've been paying extra nothing
and
for water.
people know that, and people understand
know
that.
So that having been done, what people definitely can look forward to, and are looking forward to, and definitely want it, is better Wasco water.
Now, the last point I want to make on that merger issue, and you raised it sometime, earlier on in your discussion. the NCA, the National Consumers Association, coming out and saying that the government needs to look at it and keep tabs on it. I totally disagree. I think that market forces should determine how things happen in the market. You know, if CFL is there and they are overpricing, then people will look at smaller organizations to buy from. They'll start importing more barrels, you know, with their food stuff. You know, I hate the idea of all our solutions reside in government, government legislating. Let the market forces play out.
Except that in this particular case, I think a Consumer Protection Act is a universal something. That
no, I agree with the Consumer Protection Act.
Yeah, Consumer Protection, and that it would not only be addressing specific companies or issues, but like, for example, the Minister of Commerce talked about the implications of mergers. We have no legislation dealing with mergers.
No, I agree with the Consumer Protection Act.
It is not part of our business culture. So that if we see an issue now with CFL, a resident local company, having too much of monopoly on the price of food, like you say, is the answer to legislate? You know, legislation on the one hand lives forever. Companies change, you know, and companies differ. But at the end of the day, a Consumer Protection Act is important in as much as it tends to put in place structures that will prevent or avoid or lessen the possibilities of consumers being exploited directly.
Yeah, don't get me wrong. I'm not speaking against the Consumer Protection Act, but against the urge for, you know, this thing has happened, so government should jump in and investigate.
No, we tend to do that.
And that's what I have a problem with.
We tend to use every issue that supports something that we propose to say. You see, I've been saying so all the time. The National Consumer Association is an advocacy agency.
Yes.
It has a constituency. The president has to be elected. He has to seem to be addressing
playing to the gallery,
well, I would say addressing his constituency.
You're more political than I am, so you will put it politically correct, whereas
you'll put it journalistically adapt.
I will falter a bit there. Let's move on to the next story, and it was a sad story for me, and that's my top story, that a Crown prosecutor was arrested and charged last weekend for assaulting his girlfriend. And there are so many issues that this has raised for me. The least is the abuse, you know, I mean, and that's a very significant issue for me. I don't believe that anybody has the right to raise his or her hand on anybody else, whether you're male, female, child, or whatever. You should not be using your strength to force people to do what you want them to do. Okay? That's why we are human beings. We have brains and we have understanding. That's why we can talk to each other, and even though we disagree, we can agree to disagree and live cordially, live in harmony. You know, but then to cross that line and say, okay, because you don't agree with me, then I must pummel you and I must beat you down and beat you to a pulp and make you all black and blue. I don't agree with that. However, with what has happened here, I mean, considering that the individual, before I go that, let me preface that by saying that I understand people make mistakes. Okay? I understand people make mistakes, and people are entitled to make mistakes. People should also be held accountable for their actions. So even though a mistake is made, that does not mean because it's a mistake, you should not be judged for it, you should not be punished for it. Okay? Whatever punishment suits the crime should be meted out. That's why I believe in rehabilitation. That's why I believe in redemption. So this young man, he is a Crown prosecutor. He's the one who is dealing with criminals on behalf of the state, putting them behind bars. Well, I mean, the charges were dropped, so there's no case against him anymore, but the charge was brought before the courts for him to answer. what position does that leave him to prosecute? Okay, because according to the DPP, the charges were dropped, so there is pretty much nothing that she can do about the situation, even though it might be right that whatever was alleged is true. Okay, so I mean, how much confidence does a public have in an individual who has allegedly committed a crime and has been put to sit in judgment over others in society who have committed similar crimes or even lesser crimes? Okay, the other part of it is the association. You know, the crisis center came out with a statement, and that is because of the association. The fact that the charges were withdrawn, if you're in a position where you're asking people to come forward, if you're in an abusive relationship, an abusive situation, come forward. The crisis center is there to help. The crisis center is there to provide support. You're looking at people who have a relationship with the crisis center who are not following the advice that they're given to ordinary St. Lucians. So what position does that put an abused victim, a female who is being battered by her spouse, or who is battered by her partner, and continually? What kind of confidence do you continue to have in the crisis center when those who are closely associated with the center are not following that example? Now, there are dynamics that in these situations, because these are situations concerning intimate partners. There are other things, that love issues, there are economic issues, familial issues that need to be considered. And I cannot sit here in judgment and say, okay, she should have done this, she should have done that, he should have done this, he should have done that. I am not in a position, because this thing is too complex to say that certain steps should be taken. It is much more than that. But then, you know, when you hear situations like that, it just raises those questions, and it makes you think even harder as to how you can resolve that ugly issue of domestic violence, you know. And I mean, a lot of murders in our society, for a small country like ours, a lot of murders. Why? Because we believe that the best way and the only way to solve our problems is through violence. We hit people, you know, we threaten people all the time. You know, you'd be walking on the road and you'd hear your mother from A to Z, you know, and I'll do you this, I'll chop you, I'll shoot you, you know, I'll burn your house, you know. And that's just the kind of people we are. You know, people say, okay, you don't always take it seriously, but every threat should be taken seriously. So, I mean, it's a whole complex mix that we're looking at as far as that is concerned.
Yeah, I share your view that this is a situation that nobody would like to have to deal with. Mm-hmm. I have different views on it. First of all, in my book, the person accused was a citizen, mm-hmm. a man, an ordinary citizen of St. Lucia who committed a crime. Mm-hmm. At the time he committed the crime, in my book, he was not a senior, what was it? Crown Counsel. He was not a Crown Counsel. I think he committed the crime as a man, mm-hmm. as somebody in a relationship who probably believes in the previous generation view circulated by the Mighty Sparrow in his song, which said, and I quote, "Black up the eye, bruise up the knee, then they love you eternally." That is not what it is now, and we know the details. These two persons were in a relationship for quite some time. They got into this situation. The abuser was arrested, charged, taken to court. The case was not followed up because the charge was either withdrawn or the victim decided that she would not pursue. Then we come to the decision by the Director of Public Prosecutions not to take action against a member of her staff on the basis of her claim that what happened in the privacy of his home. That is where my problem lies. Did the guy do that act as a Crown Counsel? He didn't. If the act, which is domestic violence, as you and I understand it to be illegal, if it is illegal, in my book it ought to be illegal anytime it happens, anywhere. But from the words of the DPP, that illegal act can be considered legal
if it's done,
within the privacy of your home. So that the guy is a Crown Counsel when he's at work.
When he leaves his home.
When he leaves his home. But when he's back home, he's not a Crown Counsel. Now, it so happens that the Crown Counsel and the guy are the same person. So the guy stays home and the Crown Counsel comes to work with a record of the guy who stayed home.
With the attitude, with the temperament, with the mindset,
with the mindset
with
and
the
everything,
thinking, with the
so
baggage.
That I have a problem with that. If I'm to believe what I read in one of the local papers about how busy the Office of the Director of Public Prosecutions is, to the extent that she may not even be able to respond to the requirements of the report of the review of the Constituency Council's support submitted to her office, then I would suspect that the DPP's office might also be too busy to look into whether really what the DPP is saying is that an illegal act can be considered legal if it takes place behind closed doors. And if that is what she meant, I would beg that we revisit that law. Secondly, Clinton, there's a history behind the domestic violence law and the Domestic Violence Act and the creation of the St. Lucia Crisis Center many moons ago. When
that's one many. That's
yes,
one many preceding me.
Yes, a lady by the name of Mary Ratcliffe went repeatedly complaining to the police. At that time, you reported to the Port Police Station, which is where the fire station used to be. And she incessantly and repeatedly complained and reported that her children's father was beating her. Then it came to a situation where he was having improper sexual relations with his daughter. She threatened to report him. He threatened to kill her if she did. Eventually she did, and told the police that he threatened to kill me if I report him. The police said to her, don't worry to him, go back home. She went back home. He chopped her neck off, chopped her head off in the presence of the children. He is still at large. There was a wanted poster with a certain amount for him immediately after. Today, as we speak, many moons later, he is still alive somewhere.
Yeah. And you're talking about Shaka.
Yeah. He's still alive somewhere, and he's known. But Mary Ratcliffe is dead. Her name is alive. The crisis center was established out of the advocacy by the late Ione Olinger Ford and others as a result of that. And today, the crisis center, interestingly on this issue, seems to be taking a hands-off approach. And this is where I want to come to the issue that we haven't addressed, and that is the criticism that I consider to be unfair and unwarranted of the victim, of the victim's decision not to pursue. There is a naked opposition to it which says she's encouraging. I have police friends who say to me, I hope she never comes back to us because she came, we did our work and she's withdrawn, so when it happens to her again, we hope she doesn't come back. I would beg St. Lucians to understand that in as much as this is a disgusting situation, we must always try to put ourselves in a situation and do not write people off on the basis of decisions that they have taken that we do not agree with. Put yourself in that lady's position. If, as is being said, or as has been proven, she was a victim of prolonged and sustained domestic violence, if, as has been said and was indicated in the charges, a firearm was involved, if all of those issues were involved, and if that wasn't the first beating and battering that she got, I would want to believe that there would be a reason why this intelligent young woman, a role model, a media person, would do what she did, which was to prevent the law from taking its course in this situation. And I would say, I would take the chance of saying that it is one of two things. Either she was threatened and there was an element of fear involved there, or, and I don't know if you will agree with this one, it could have been that she didn't want to have to go take the stand, to have to go into all of those intimate details with us, the press, covering, and her having to be quoted in the press saying all of these things about her child father, her boyfriend of so long, etc., etc. Now, you know, we're not in the situation.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And we're not emotional ties still, even though there is that abuse, okay, alleged abuse. There are still those emotional ties because you don't have a child with someone that you don't feel. Well, I mean, one new email. You're looking at a situation where these people decided they were consensual in coming together and having a relationship. I wouldn't
even go there.
What I'm saying is, I'm making this point to say that there are emotional ties. It's not a situation where, say, someone has been raped and you know, a child has come out of that and the mother and the father have no connection. These are two people who have come together who love each other.
You sounding like Sparrow.
No.
You sounding like Sparrow.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Don't say that. I sound like
that's
Sparrow.
Not where you're going.
No, that's not where I'm
okay.
going.
That there's so much in love that she could take the licks.
No, not at all. I'm saying that her decision not to go forward, we have to consider all these things.
Yes,
as well.
all the factors that could be.
She is not someone who is a stranger to her. It's not someone that is unloved to her. Someone that she never had those close, personal, intimate feelings for. Where you can say, oh, that guy, he's a this or that. You know, you throw the book at him. He is not that to her. He is the father of a child. He is someone that she might have fallen in love with. You know. So it's difficult for her to just come out and say, you know what, he did this to me once or twice or whatever, so send him to jail for life. Kill him, hang him even. You know, so I understand. At
the end of the day, Clinton, I do not think this is the end of the story. I think that it takes a pause at this point in time, and I would only beg, like I said, that we do not throw the baby out with the bathwater and say that, you know, here again, an intelligent woman making herself a victim and not taking action. There is a reason behind everything. And I would also say this, that in my heart of hearts, I believe that domestic violence, whether it is men beating women or women beating men, women beat men too, domestic violence, I think it is a disease. I think it is a disease. I've been in a relationship with my wife for 34 years. We've never exchanged blows. It never came to the situation where we exchange blows. We exchange other things, but not blows.
I would hope
as in hard words, yeah. But I think that the domestic violence thing is something that needs to be addressed. This issue, because it is a crown counsel involved and a journalist, because of the profession of the individuals and the profile of the individuals involved, it makes the headlines and it is still an issue a week after. But domestic violence is something that is an integral part of our society, It has not been sufficiently addressed. It is not being sufficiently addressed, in my view, based on the response of the DPP to that situation. And one would only hope that rather than crying down the DPP, crying down the victim, and crying down the perpetrator, that we go the other way and use this high-profile example to zero in on all of the aspects that we have looked in, the personal, the private, the emotional, and all of that, so that we can address this domestic violence situation in a way that we have to understand it's not going to be done overnight. I remember the classic case of a judge in the UK about 20 years ago, when the question of domestic violence had just become an issue that was intolerant, where this guy had bruised and battered his wife into unconsciousness, and the judge sentenced him, saying, you know, you were brutal, you were like an animal, you treated her like an animal. I mean, you know, men don't do that to their wives. I mean, you could give her a little slap and a little something like that, but not that type of. He had to resign for suggesting that a little slap would have been enough.
Yeah, but just to close off on that as we go to break, I mean, many of us use the rule of thumb, and we don't know what the rule of thumb is. The rule of thumb is, you know, in times gone by, that men, when they would beat their women or their spouses, could not use a stick bigger than their thumb. That is what the rule of thumb is.
So you push your thumb in a woman's eye?
No. That the stick that you hit them with should not be bigger.
Well, it's like doctors telling you should put nothing into your ears that's smaller than your elbow.
I see.
Yes,
okay,
yes,
I get it.
yes.
I had to.
Those of us who use cotton swab. My doctor always tells me never put nothing in your ears smaller than your elbow.
As I pause to contemplate these very profound words, we'll take a break and we'll be right back on the Press Club. Stay with us.